and asking for your support should say they're willing to step up and meet. And the first one is, can you produce positive results? And we have a lot of energy in this campaign, as you can tell. And can you produce positive results for the people that you serve, even if they are protesting you, which happens from time to time? It's okay. That's all right. You know, I have found that this is that there's a lot of energy and a lot of anxiety and frustration right now in our country that spills over into our political system. So I'll just keep talking because I have the microphone. Territory these days, and what I have found is that people who like to yell rarely like to listen. So there's going to be a conversation between us about whether we can produce positive results that make a difference in people's lives, because there are a lot of Americans who are anxious and frustrated and worried, and we do have to have more good jobs with rising incomes. That's part of the whole premise of our democracy and our economy, that people will be able to see the rewards, the results of their hard work. And I want to do more to help create good jobs. I think we can, and I think it has to be a partnership between the public sector and the private sector, where we look for ways to incentivize investments in research, because that's what we do better than anybody in the world, and incentivize research in infrastructure, advanced manufacturing, and clean, renewable energy, and really chart the future that we want to have. And it won't surprise you to hear me say my dad was a small businessman. I really believe in small business, and I want to do more to stimulate more small business and make sure small business has access to the capital and credit that you need to start and grow. And we are finally going to ensure equal pay for women's work. So I'm always struck by this, because a lot of people say, well, that's not a problem. And I meet people all the time who tell me in great detail why it's a problem for them. And, you know, it's not just a woman's issue. It's a family issue. It's a fairness issue. It's an economic issue. And I think everybody has a stake in this. If you have a mother, a wife, a sister, or a daughter, and everybody here has at least one of those, you know that if someone is not being given equal pay, that affects the whole family. So there are things we can do to grow the economy, to create more jobs, to see rising incomes, and things we can do to make it fairer. But one of the keys still as to whether we're going to succeed as a nation is education. And I feel passionately about this because, as I said, I had a great public school education. But I want to start in the first 5 years of life. We need more early childhood education, more kindergarten programs to help prepare our children. And it's not just that I think this would be a nice thing. The brain research is so definitive. 80% of your brain is physically formed by the age of 3. Now, what does that mean? That means if you have the right stimulation, and of course, all the grandchildren of myself and my friends are so brilliant and so prepared. We stimulate them so effectively. You know, I said months ago, you know, we read constantly to Charlotte, my granddaughter. Literally, we have since like she was an hour old. And I said, you know, at some point she's going to learn to have, you know, enough vocabulary to be able to say enough with the reading. Okay, I get the story. But so far, she still loves to be read to and loves to have all of that. But the point is that we need to provide that for every one of our children. I want every child to be able to succeed when he or she reaches kindergarten. And I want to have the best programs. And we need to look at what works. We have a lot of research about what works, especially for low-income and disadvantaged kids, for kids with disabilities. I met a few young women here who are working with children with autism, something that we've got to spend more time, energy, and research understanding how best to help. And I thank them for the work they're doing. And as they know, I put out a policy about autism because I want to make sure every child gets a chance to go as far as his or her God-given potential will take them. I also think we've got to make college more affordable. You know, when I was at Maine East and Maine South, you know, those of us who were thinking about going to college, we knew it was going to cost money, but my goodness, the amount of money that it costs today, it has gone up exponentially in the cost. We've got to get the cost down. We've got to make college affordable. I have a plan for debt-free tuition, so you'll be able to go to a public college or university. I also think, given the skills we need in the economy today, community college is now like high school was 100 years ago. We need to provide it to be as free as possible so more young people can go and get the skills and the credentials and the support they need to be in that work world. And I think we need to do more in high schools. You know, look, I am from the era at both Emerson and Maine. You know, we had technical education, called it vocational education. I know when I was in junior high, we took home ec and the boys took shop, and then we switched and the girls took shop and the boys took home ec. And I'll tell you what, I call on those lessons all the time because it was not that complicated, but I didn't know anything. I knew nothing. And so, you know, just learning about getting along in the world, but more importantly, how many jobs there are out there for young people who have those skills. And we need to get the load of student debt down. Too many young people are just suffering under a burden of student debt, and we've got to help you get the interest rates down and be able to pay that back. And I am convinced if we do that, then more young people are going to feel like their lives can actually begin because they're not so overwhelmed by having to take a job they may not even want, but it helps them pay back their debt. I paid my debt back when I got out of law school as a percentage of my income. And that made it possible for me to go to work for the Children's Defense Fund. I would never have been able to afford that if I didn't have that option. I want that option available for everyone. And we need to keep working hard on healthcare. And in addition to getting the cost of healthcare down and all that we have to do, including getting the cost of prescription drug costs down, I want to mention two issues that I hear about everywhere I go in this country: mental health and addiction. And we still do not do enough on either. And we've got to do more to help on mental health. It's just so sad when people come up to me and tell me their stories and they don't get the help they need or they don't get the help long enough. And the same with addiction. I have now talked with dozens of people who have lost a sibling or a child or a good friend to an overdose. And it is something that is just epidemic in lots of parts of our country. So we have work to do. And then, of course, I want to be sure that as President and Commander-in-Chief, you can meet the test of can you keep our country safe? And can you lead the world with strength and smarts and steadiness? And I believe that we live in a complicated, dangerous world. And we can't afford loose cannons. You know, I was over in the library doing an interview with Chris Cuomo, and I said, look, in the last week, Donald Trump has attacked Great Britain, our closest ally, has praised the reckless, dangerous dictator of North Korea, has reiterated a call for us to pull out of NATO, our strongest military alliance, has suggested that more countries can just go and develop nuclear weapons. All of that is not just offensive, it's dangerous. And when you look at what he has said and how the rest of the world is hearing it, doubting what kind of country we are, not just what kind of person he is or what kind of leader he might be, that poses risks to us. And it is not a risk that is worth taking. And when Chris Cuomo just looked right at me and asked, do you think Donald Trump is qualified to be president? I said, no, he is not qualified to be president. Himself. Nobody else has done it. He has disqualified himself. And that doesn't mean this is not going to be a hard election. It will be. But it means that there's so much at stake that each and every one of you who is here today, I hope will stay involved. I am very grateful to you for your support, your generosity, to keep my campaign going, to keep enabling me to take this message around the country. And thank you. Thank you very much. And you know, the third big test, after can you produce results, can you keep us safe and lead the world as Commander-in-Chief, is can you unify us? And here again, we have such a stark difference between those of us trying to unify people, trying to demonstrate and ask that we all show respect toward each other, and what you see coming from the other side. If you listen, you will hear that there is an attempt to roll back the rights of so many Americans. I want you to know where I stand. I support a woman's right to make her own health care decisions. Against these partisan attacks. I will defend marriage equality and work to end against the LGBT community. And I will also continue to support a comprehensive path to immigration reform that includes citizenship for people who are in our country who are working and raising their children. And I will continue to take on the gun lobby and fight. Here we go! And there are ways of doing all of this that will not play into the divisiveness. And when we talk about people's dignity, their autonomy, when we talk about respecting one another, listening to one another, showing some more kindness toward one another. You know, that's really how I was raised by my mother. And some of you that I went to school with knew her. And, you know, she had such a difficult life when she was a young girl and a teenager that she really modeled for me resilience and kindness, because even though her own family rejected her, her parents and her grandparents, she had to work at the age of 14 in somebody else's home, she told me years later, when I kind of figured all this out, that it was the kindness of people, her teachers in school, even the woman whose house she worked in. Along the way, people were kind. And that kindness and respect, even from strangers, or from people not in your family, but with whom you have some kind of relationship, can make such a difference. So why on earth do we want to reward meanness and hatred and nastiness and brutishness and bullying? That's not who we are, and we don't want to be that kind of nation. That is just wrong. And so I have said I will do everything I can to unify our country and to find common ground. I did it as First Lady, as a senator, as Secretary of State. I found common ground, you know, after we weren't successful trying to get health care reform back in 93 and 94. I started working with Republicans and Democrats to create the Children's Health Insurance Program, which has provided health insurance for 8 million kids who are not poor enough to be eligible for Medicaid, but whose families worked but couldn't afford insurance. And as I travel around the country, I meet those young people, many of them now in their 20s, who tell me what a difference it made. And that was totally bipartisan. As a senator, I think I worked with every Republican that I served with in the Senate. And as Secretary of State, we worked really hard to reach a treaty with Russia to reduce nuclear weapons. And in order to get that treaty passed in the Senate, We had to work with Republican senators. I had to round up 13 votes, and we did. And so you keep looking for ways to find that common ground, to solve those problems. That's also the best way, I think, to model for your children and your grandchildren, that we don't get things done, whether it's in business or government or school or the neighborhood, just by demanding it or ordering it, not in a democracy. You listen, you compromise, you work to get the result you're trying to achieve. That's what built this country. And that's why I'm so proud to be on the brink of being the Democratic nominee of a party that will continue to fight for those values and to work with our friends on the other side in the Republican Party who have the same idea that we've got work to do. We can't rest on our laurels. I do think we are great, unlike my presumptive nominee opponent, but I don't think we take that for granted. We have to work at it every single year, and leaders and citizens have to work at it. But we are best positioned in the world right now. Do we have issues? Yes, we do. Do we have to do more to get our economy going? Yes, but you compare us with anybody else, and nobody is as well off. And I think it's important to remind ourselves that we are so fortunate to be Americans. I traveled to 112 countries as their Secretary of State, and I wouldn't trade places with anybody. And I think the facts are pretty clear. People want to come here. They're not trying to go into China or Russia or Iran or other places. They want to come here. They want to be part of this great democracy and this free enterprise economy that has created more opportunity for anybody. We now have to make it work for everybody. So I'm thrilled to be home. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you for being here today. I really love seeing my classmates from Field School, Emerson Junior High, and both Maine East and Maine South. And I want to say especially to the students who are here from Maine East and Maine South. And I think I also met some students from Prospect Heights too, so we've got a few other high schools represented. I want you to know how important it is that you understand the opportunities that are available in this country, and that whatever path you choose, right after high school or beyond, that you think about voting every time you can, because it is the most important citizenship responsibility, that you keep yourself informed about what's going on in the country and the world so that you can make a good decision. And that when people ask for your vote, you really think hard about what kind of America and world that person is promising. Because it's been my long experience that when people running for office tell you what they want to do, you should believe them. Don't think they're going to change. Don't think that they are only saying one thing to get elected, because it's been my experience most people will try to do what they say they want to do. So you have a chance to really pay attention and evaluate. And for some of you, this will be your first vote in this November election. And I want you to hold me accountable too. I'm not asking for anybody's vote just as a blank check. I ask you to go to my website, hillaryclinton.com, read about what I have laid out there. Look at how I would pay for anything that I say we should do. Think about those tests of producing results, keeping us safe, and unifying our country. And I would be honored to have your first vote, and of course, the votes of all of you. Thank you all so much.